No places. Say we're gonna get started soon with the episode. Boop, doo, 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 doo.
Boop boopity boopity boo.
I made it.
You made it.
I didn't actually make it. I'm late. That's what I should have said. I'm late.
Yeah, it's fine. Going live with.
There we go.
Sam, you seem louder than normal for some reason.
Well, you know the drill.
I haven't touched anything.
All I did was turn everything off. The only difference, there is a difference this week. It's that I turned everything off
Let me hit this
before I
button
left
real
on
quick.
vacation, and then I turned everything back on.
You might need to turn your gain down like just a hair.
Okay.
So you're like, because you're actually like getting reverb just in this.
Well. Sam's fan is definitely. Wait, now did it go away?
Yeah, it's gone now.
Okay.
Sam talk.
Are we hearing Sam though?
I haven't talked yet.
Okay, great.
That sounds
I was
yeah,
like,
you sound, yeah. That's good.
2-5 gain.
That's fine.
Look, Sam, I'm joining the mic in your face club, so I can. Well, I should do that on the show. Never mind. I'll just say it when we. Twitchies. I'm in the.
We did it, boys.
You sounded like such a disappointed child right there, where you're like, oh.
I was like, I should do the bit on the show. That would be funnier. And then I'm like, well, I guess we're sort of live. Like,
I mean, the Twitch people could see
I did
it.
open up the Twitchy chat, the chat of the
Okay.
Twitchies.
Sam, we changed your chamber of judgment because I forgot that we were doing keywords, and that's been what we've been trying to do for almost a month now.
So, okay.
So Omnis has chamber of judgment. You'll have to close out.
Oh, all right.
Well, I mean, he can still introduce keywords. Like,
Okay.
it's
No,
just
that's
that
all
we're
right.
talking
I don't
about.
want it. It's not mine.
I don't want it.
Okay. I just
Okay.
thought it would be an interesting topic. Like, what do we think about this mechanic? What do we think about how it's being executed? Like, how much impact does a single keyword make on a character?
A
Like,
lot.
is Obi-Wan so good as a secondary that he has to not have keywords? Like, I think that's where the
I
discussion
think
comes in.
it'll be a fun discussion. Let's give it a MCP token. Hello. Sam, my house is like empty. I'm scared.
Desert, I like how you are like an attention deficit. Ooh, shiny. Like, you literally are just like, oh, so we're gonna talk about MCP token. By the way, my room is empty. Like,
Are you done? Are they done? Are you free?
No,
Are they letting you out?
no, not yet. But yeah, this is how I am. Like, it's amazing that I can stay on topic for as long as I do.
Yeah.
It really
you
is.
have worked very diligently on that RV. So,
And I never, ever,
Don't do it ever again.
ever want to renovate anything in my life again. Like, I am
No,
done.
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks.
When I buy a house, I will just make sure it's good. When I upgrade to a different RV, I will make sure it's good.
I think with houses, it's actually a little bit easier.
It probably is, to be fair. Like, to fix the walls, I literally had to basically sand down to where I could see styrofoam instead of just pulling the wall apart.
Neat.
Like, it was terrible. I don't want to do it again.
we're up on Twitch, right?
We're up on Twitch. I just want to like have some people in here before we get going. But I think we're probably good now. You guys ready to start this shindig? What's up, nerds? Oh, it's you. Okay. Also, whoa, what just happened? Okay, that's that. My wife doesn't believe that you're bald.
Me?
Yeah.
Did I record one of the shows without
No,
the
that
hat?
was the bonus episode.
She hasn't seen the. You haven't
No.
shown her the bonus episode.
Your wife's not
No,
a patron?
she's not a
Jeez.
patron,
Wow.
man.
Ouch. So harsh.
She's probably not
Reverend
even
in the
watching.
house.
What's up, Rev? Right, mad. All right. Let me get a sippy sip.
Yeah,
Okay.
you sip that shit. Put that delicious stuff in your mouth.
All right, let's do this. I'm hitting the buttons.
All right.
Button those hits.
So we're going live then?
Yeah, we're live. We're live.
Okay.
We were already live.
Well. Welcome, my young apprentice.
Stretch out with your feelings.
I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold.
Welcome to Rogue Support, a Star Wars Shatterpoint podcast. We are your hosts, Dizzard. I couldn't help it. I would go
3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Rogue Support, a Star Wars Shatterpoint podcast. We are your hosts, Dizzard, Omnis, and Finger Guns. I can never do an intro correctly. Our goal as a cast is to do intros correctly and to give you the support that you need for your gaming needs, whether that be tactics, supplies, or correct intros. If you enjoy what you are listening to, be sure to leave a review and let us know how we are doing. As well, come join our Discord. The link will be in the description. Now open those blast doors, and hopefully we'll eventually get a right intro. Yeah, welcome to Rogue Support. Close the blast doors. Every time I hear that intro,
Open the blast doors. Open them.
Every time I hear the pew 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 pew, I really just want to get like a little toy laser gun and just be sitting here and like shooting it at you guys and stuff. I think
you know what I should do?
One of those.
I bought a 3D print of Poe Dameron's blaster and then like cleaned it all up and painted it, and it's weathered, so it looks really nice and it's a really high quality print. I should just bring that for like the show and just like pew pew.
this is
Just, like lean on it. Like, just hold it, pose with it the entire time. Stand up, pull it out of your
Some
pants.
people have lightsabers, but the Wild Omnis, he likes to shoot people like the Wild West.
Wild Omnis.
Wild Omnis got a lot more Clint Eastwood this week.
He's not Omnis. He's not your TV midnight ad anymore. He's
This is not a happy-go-lucky
Well,
Wild
See, now I'm
Omnis
like
any
the
longer.
grizzled carnival operator. I'm no longer the young, spry carnival
been
operator.
2
Now I'm getting a
weeks.
little like,
it's been
I know a lot that can happen in 2 weeks.
Oh man.
This is a long time.
So let's go ahead and jump into the cantina. Sam, what you playing, painting, drinking, watching, whatever it may be?
I thought about lying and saying this was something remotely manly, like a whiskey sour or something, but it's a Mai Tai, and technically it's like a Mai Tai spritzer because I added some soda water on top of it.
Oh.
So that's all right.
Can I just say, like, I
hard
don't.
beer to drink tonight too.
As someone who grew up with like, I didn't like beer as a teenager, and so I always dealt with the like, oh, you're not having manly drinks. I am like, as an adult, like I am so far beyond fuck that shit. Like, seriously, drink whatever the hell you want. Like, I will give you shit about not growing a great beard, but you can drink whatever you want. You can eat whatever you want. Like, I don't, dude. If you enjoy a Mai Tai, have a fucking Mai Tai.
I mean, to be fair, I thought it was a
Roll
lemon
drop.
drop.
I have some hard root beer to drink tonight too. So I've been out of town for the past like week, basically. So I just got back in from Tennessee today, like this evening, like possibly
Nice.
why I'm kind of late.
That's fair.
Possible.
But yeah. So on my vacation, I played 0 games
Oh,
because that's hashtag dad life, dad with family life. You just get to go and have a family vacation instead of one where you get to play a bunch of games and engage with your hobby. I get to do
Could you
that
have one
separately.
of your kids
That's separate.
like in
Not old enough
the child like egg container thing, and you would just be like hashtag dad life?
They're not that small.
So
that
build a
doesn't
larger-
matter. Yeah,
Come
make it
on.
bigger.
Problem solving here, Dad. That is what dad
Or-
life is all about.
How do
If
you
he
get
needs
it
a
to
bigger
hover?
egg, you make him bigger.
How do you make it?
You
Just
just
make
hold
it.
it for the picture,
Okay.
Or like crop
that
the
would
picture
really
at the
help
right
me.
angle where the wife is holding the egg because she's doing
Or-
real work anyway.
Or you just make a harness that holds onto it. That'd
I
work.
wore my younger son for like 6 months, for what that's worth, because it was right at the beginning of the pandemic lockdown, and so I was literally wearing a sleeping child while I was working, like all the time.
And how does that make you
He'd
feel?
love it. The Mai Tai makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside.
That's
good
good.
stuff.
That's
It's refreshing.
good. All right, Omnis. What about you? What you playing? drinking stuff.
Right now, I just got Starburst IPA. I'm always on the search
Nice,
for
on
things
point.
that give me a Star Wars feel. And it's harder than it seems, despite how many IPAs are available in the greater Seattle area. But it's a solid one. I like it. I've been diving hard into the kind of split synergy rosters. I forget which casts we've done and like what we've talked about, what we haven't is a little vague to me right now. But I had brought it up on the Hello There cast. I think I mentioned it a little bit in the bonus episode that Dizzard and I did, just kind of like on the cuff. But I'm really turned around, like, because when I first started hearing about Shatterpoint, I was really like, oh man, you're just gonna play like all Mandos, you're just gonna play all Republic, and that's how the game is gonna be. And right now, I don't know if this will stay that way long term, but I'm really in the camp of like, oh, you kind of want to like mix and maybe have like 60% that's one, like maybe do something where like like Obi clones and then Ahsoka who still gets the Obi benefits, but then run Mandos under her, something like that, where you have kind of 4 out of 6 of your characters slash units benefit from like the main synergy, but then you have some other stuff in there that diversifies your options on the table. And so I've been kind of diving hard into that, and I don't know when I'm going to come out of it. Like it feels great when I'm playing it. So
Yeah,
but we'll get into that more.
nice. For me,
The eyebrows are for you, right?
only for him. I've been playing. I played 2 games
Maul?
this week.
Have you been playing Maul? Would that be a change of pace?
Hold on, I saw a game where you weren't playing Maul.
What?
It's been 2 weeks. It's been a long 2 weeks. Do we not talk about that? I saw it. I saw it with my own eyes.
I mean,
What was he playing?
With my own
Grand Inquisitor
eyes.
Invader.
Grand Inquisitor Invader. So you've abandoned Maul, is what I'm
No,
hearing.
I had to.
Abandoned.
The premiere list. I had to. Yeah, I played
Not
Grand
true, 4
Inquisitor
rounds.
Invader.
It is possible to play Darth Maul every round
No,
of a premiere event.
the
And I figured a Dizzard Maul enthusiast would do such a thing.
I told myself I would play 1 game without Maul.
And then you immediately changed your profile picture to not include him as well? Like,
What? No, he's. What are you talking about? He's in there. But that's not true. But that is not true.
That's impossible.
Obi-Wan just
you?
cut Maul in half. It happened.
Oh my
Duel of
God.
Fates.
What is going on right now? No, I played Vader and Grand Inquisitor, and to be completely honest, I was kind of bored. I don't really care for Grand Inquisitor.
That's because he's not very good.
Yeah, I actually kind of agree with that. He's kind of boring to play. I don't get the hype, I guess.
It's
Fifth
red
brother.
lightsabers. Like that's what's.
It's
Yeah.
red lightsabers. I think Brother's sick, but Grand Inquisitor himself is very.
He's fine.
He's fine.
Like,
His identity's
but-
great for Vader, but that's about it. Because he can heal, and Vader's probably killing stuff. But yeah, I played that, and I also did a test game playing around with Mother and Night Sisters, and based off of like the bonus episode that Almost and I did for the patrons. Man, I love Night Sisters. They are, for lack of a better term, straight capital G gas. Like they are
They look
amazing.
real good.
Yeah, they are. Probably, honestly, and I said this, I think in Discord somewhere, that I think Night Sisters are probably my new favorite support. They are really good, and Mother is pretty.
I mean, for
legit,
someone
too.
who wants to play Maul, or at least
Yeah.
used to want to play Maul, they have a lot of synergy there.
You're not wrong. Honestly, when I played that game, though, I was like, I kind of wish Premiere wasn't a thing because I would just play Mother and Maul, and I'd be fine with this. But
Does it make you want to play Asajj more so you have 2 primaries that synergize with them?
Yes, actually, it does. I have thought about it. Like maybe it's Asajj. I basically have a floating 4th squad where it's like I have Vader, Mother, Maul, and then it's either Asajj or Cad Bane, depending on what he looks like when he gets revealed.
So if you do Asajj, Mother, Maul, Cad, or Vader even,
Yeah.
that's 4 bald primaries, right?
Yes. there's a thing
Just
here.
saying.
We call that team the truth.
Team of truth. This is the will, the will of the fates. It's been decided. All right, let's go ahead and get into our chamber of judgment. Omnis, you want to go ahead and take us off?
The Chamber of Judgment. Or sorry, I should wild this up a bit. The Chamber of Judgment.
There's the wild Omnis we know.
Yeah. So I thought it'd be really interesting for us to just kind of talk about what we think about the keyword mechanic at this point, because obviously it plays a really big role. We've seen characters now like the secondary Obi-Wan, right, who has like almost no keywords. He's got very, very little synergy with almost anything else. Does he even have any? His only synergies are negative right now. Like he just helps the Inquisitors get Force back, right? Like
he's got Force user, right? Like that's the only thing.
Force user and Jedi, I think.
I don't think he has Jedi. We have a fancy thing here. Let me look it up. Force user and Jedi. Okay, yeah.
Oh, it's like Omnis remembers stuff.
Better than me.
I've said multiple things wrong in the cast, so I kind of deserve the judgment. So
it's okay.
Honestly,
I want to interrupt you real quick because I'm mean and rude.
No, jump in.
I think the most interesting keyword to me is actually on Night Sisters, and that's Trooper. Because it hasn't been on anything else from what I recall.
This is high quality content.
Yeah. Oh, nope, it's on B2s. It's on B2s. Maybe it is on like just like the dual, like.
Yeah, it's on some of the basic troops where there may be a synergy at some point that just is specific to troopers. But how do we feel about it, right? Because obviously, like Vader benefits a lot from having the Galactic Republic keyword, Empire. Right? And then how certain characters, their signature abilities directly interact with the keywords, and then some don't, right? Like Ahsoka's is just like, I will back up anybody who's backing me up. Right. And so I could launch into my thoughts, but Dizzard, you are already in interrupting mode. So why don't you do you like this mechanic?
I mean,
do you like how it's being executed at the moment?
To be completely fair, part of the reason why I rate Maul so high is because he has like the most keywords out of the core box. So like my immediate look at him is he's always going to like when a new release comes out, it's potential for him to be like ever changing and evergreen. Versus someone like Ahsoka? I think Ahsoka's only got like 2, maybe 3. But like Maul's keywords.
You are such a liar. Your favorite thing about Maul is not his keywords. Your favorite thing about Maul is he's Maul.
Well, yes, but like the biggest thing about it though is like he's got Dathomirian, he's got Scoundrel, he's got Force user. He doesn't have Sith. Like it was just cool. Like the spread of keywords is what I like about Maul. Is it's very vast on what he could do. When we look at something like, let's say Mace Windu, who was just revealed this week, Force user, Galactic Republic, and Jedi. That just to me says he's going to be
like Mace.
Yeah, it's very Mace. Mother is Dathomirian, Force user, and a Night Sister. So it's like she's like I think you can kind of look at these keywords and almost tell how versatile the character will be, and like how often you're probably going to see that character in squads, or premier list specifically. Because we look at Maul's got a bunch. He's probably going to be in a lot of premier lists because he can easily splash. And as you said, tying into their identity, the less keywords in the identity, I almost makes like that identity like just leagues above other identities because you're less locked into it. Like it's just it sounds super simple and like yes, that's what it is. It's on the paper, but it's almost you kind of like gloss over that fact because, or you look at Anakin's and Anakin's is like he's so strong with his identity. Well, half of it's only for Galactic Republic. Obi-Wan, his identity is really good. Well, half of it's only for Republic. Actually, 3/4 of his is only for Republic. But it's like Maul, Ahsoka, they're not tied to keywords for their identities. So I think when you're looking at keywords as a whole, there's a whole lot you could talk about between abilities, identities, where they attribute. Like Maul getting Dathomirian makes sense, and now he's pretty cool with Mother. I like this mechanic so far.
With the Night Sisters in really positive ways.
Very, very positive ways. I like the mechanic. I think if I cause my biggest direct parallel with this is MCP, of course, with affiliations, right? I like this more than affiliations, to be completely honest. I think it's wider space to be used, and it doesn't lock stuff into a corner as much. So I am 100% for keywords on what this person is from and how they've been
What
doing
about you,
them.
Sam? Do you like this mechanic so far? Execution of it and the idea of it?
Yes. Also, Trooper is on every support unit.
Yeah, no, I'm dumb. I'm dumb,
Every
okay?
single support.
Is it on
unit is a
Brother?
Trooper,
Is it on Brother?
including Mandalorians.
I don't know
You know what? I don't know.
why.
It might not be on Brother because he's his own thing.
Yeah, he's probably not.
I'll
a
let-
trooper.
His is not Trooper. Yeah, there's
Okay, so
yeah.
almost every support unit.
Yeah, no, like I said it, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna sound real stupid here in a second." So yeah, don't listen to me.
I like it. I mean, Obi-Wan triggers off of, like, as was mentioned, like 3/4 of his card triggers for keywords, specifically like Galactic Republic. So, yes.
I'm curious if down the road there's going to be any keyword errata, like I'm not saying that Django should have Mandalorian because I think it would be a little bit busted, but is there going to be something like that down the road where they want to create a keyword that didn't exist that suddenly would have interacted really well with other characters that have already released?
I mean, that's game
Dizzard?
design.
I think it's 100% possible because if you did not know, this last week we got an errata of eras.
Oh,
What
yeah,
was
I did see that.
what was the era errata?
So in the rule book, it has Clone Wars and Galactic Civil War, and this week they put out now it's what Fall of the Jedi, New Republic. I don't God where's the screenshot at? It was actually it's really crazy. It's
They revised them.
yeah they revised them, and I think it's really
but this is essentially just
here it is.
renaming them.
Symbols.
yes.
Right? Like,
Basically.
Okay, so it's Fall of the Jedi, Reign of the Empire, Age of Rebellion, and the New Republic. Yes, they're just renaming them, but to be completely honest, like Sam and I had a conversation about stewardship of the game, and so far, AMG has impressed me with stewardship of the game for Shatterpoint. They are putting out stuff before we even ask for it or before it's even a problem.
yeah, I agree with that. But I think the main takeaway from the rename is that there's things that they want to be part of
Yeah.
the Clone Wars
Yes.
that
Like
will take
Padme.
place, that will be based on characters prior to the Clone Wars.
Well, it's like you got the Handmaidens pack coming out in August with Padme, and if you look at it, that is before the Clone Wars.
But I would still have considered that Clone Wars, right? Because that's the same time period that Tyrannus is creating the clones.
Technically, you're
That's happening,
wrong.
like-
Technically, you're wrong because Clone Wars didn't start until Amidala was a senator and no longer the queen.
Right, that's when the Clone Wars actually started as far as like the Republic's concerned, but that's not before Palpatine started planning the Clone Wars and putting it into motion, is my
fair.
point.
Yeah, it's fair.
And so what I think it means is there may be things that take place slightly before episode 1 that they may want to coordinate and still be part of this era. And it could even mean, this is tinfoil hat, whoop, tinfoil hat. Maybe there's some sort of show or content that's coming down the road that's meant to be stuff that takes place maybe a Qui-Gon related, I don't know.
I mean, yes.
You know,
when I saw
but
the
obviously
picture,
they
I was
have,
like, Qui-Gon? Yes.
Right, and maybe it's like maybe they made a character based on Tales of the Jedi. Maybe there's a young Dooku secondary, or maybe even a Jedi Dooku primary that would be before the Clone Wars, but they want to involve it in this whole time period.
Or they'll give us a dual pack of Qui-Gon, Obi, and Maul.
But I think that would definitely be like in a reasonable like Clone Wars time period. But I think if you start talking about stuff that happens before episode 1, and
Yeah.
yeah, and so I think
the New Republic.
That's all you
officially
want.
on the list, which means it's a matter of time before my dreams come true.
so if you got to have what would be the number one most important new Republic character to come out? If you got one, just a single one.
Raylo. That's what he wants.
Yeah,
Raylo.
Raylo is a single character. It's an 8-man box. It's 2 New Republic commandos, and I don't know. I'd take Finn or Poe. I'd take like a Finn and a Poe. Like I'd be in for that. But the most important part is that they give me my Raylo.
I don't know. What about God, I just blanked. What is the stormtrooper? The badass stormtrooper? God, what is the girl?
Oh, Phasma.
Phasma, that's what
Captain Phasma.
I don't know why I was blanking hard on that name. She'd be pretty legit, to be honest.
Yeah.
Kylo with Phasma, and then like new stormtroopers, and then you get Rey and I don't know, Chewie. Chewie would be the secondary, and then maybe like Poe and Finn. I don't know. That would probably be disrespectful in some way, but it would be a cool.
I mean, it would be Finn getting hosed by Star Wars again.
Wow.
Okay, so I figure out a way to get them all in the same box.
To bring this back to keywords, I'm curious. What is the most impactful keyword to the game to date?
Oh, to date, I was going to say Force Dyad, but if we're just talking to date, then
yeah,
it's not Trooper.
What if it is?
No, because it obviously hasn't triggered enough for you to even remember.
It's weird so far that some keywords are just negatives, right? Like Force user is just a negative.
Well, I would argue that Force user is probably the most impactful to the game state right now.
Because of the Inquisitors?
Because of the
That's what
Inquisitors.
they're triggering off of?
Yeah.
But
Grievous is Jedi, so that's coming too, right? So
no, Grievous is Force user too.
It's just Force user. Ooh,
yeah.
Dang.
The one that's weirdest to me is, say, like, Barriss specifically only buffs Jedi, even though she goes Sith, right? Like, that's the direction that she goes, as she starts turning to the dark side. But then, like, Vader is like, I will fucking buff whoever. And so there are some times that I'm like, are we over, or, like, how the keywords are being handed out? Like, overall, I think it's a good mechanic. I think it's more interesting than some other ways that they could have do it. I don't want to talk about other games, but I think it's good to just have synergies as opposed to you have to play a faction.
Yeah.
I'd like to see more of it, to be perfectly honest. I'd like to see less things that are not locked behind a keyword of some sort.
Yeah.
Like Vader being able to buff the entire field at any range without keywords. Like,
I mean, obviously, they do have to be conscientious of that, right? Because you don't want to like destroy any need to have synergy. I'm already leaning towards don't go full synergy.
Yeah.
And if you start making like really powerful characters that just buff everything, then suddenly you're like, oh, I'm just playing a hodgepodge of the best characters all the time.
I feel like the best like identity abilities are like Obi has such a great one where it impacts some and then gives a better benefit to the keyword. I've been really liking the identities and abilities that are like tied to, hey, everybody gets a little bonus, but my buddies, they get the VIP pass. I love that. And I think that is probably the most correct way to do these keywords for identities, because you're not forced into like playing an affiliation or like a keyword. You're not forced into that mindset. You're able to be flexible with it, but you're also slightly encouraged to play with the keyword. And I think that's where you get these flex lists.
I do also like that not everyone is designed like Obi, right? Where like Obi is kind of the example of like, he is probably the most faction leader. Like, I think I posted this somewhere in our Discord at some point, but I kind of broke down. I can't remember if it was the Patreon section or not. But if
everybody just joins the Patreon, then they'll know. Like, it's fine.
Yeah, I don't remember whether I put it in the Patreon or the public, but I was responding to an existing conversation. I didn't intentionally make it Patreon only or not, but
we just talked
the concept is that I think the initial 6 characters are meant to emphasize a particular aspect of Shatterpoint, and Obi-Wan is the leader in the traditional sense. Like, if you come from another game and you want a very faction-focused kind of character, general, warcaster, affiliation leader, whatever game you come from, you want that. Obi is that, and he is that in a really extreme, powerful way. I'm glad that not everything is that way.
I think Dooku's similar
Dooku,
in the
yeah.
aspect. Yeah, Dooku. I think Dooku's like the same, but for the good guys, you know.
I
Wait,
completely
wait.
disagree.
How?
I think you might be confused, but
Who?
We're gonna get into this in the primary topic. Like,
Okay.
Dooku is not a hey, you should be playing a whole bunch of separatists. Dooku fixes a problem for just about anybody.
No,
He just happens to like he's gonna play like there's two separatists that synergize really well with him that comes in the same box.
Okay,
But-
no, okay. You know what? Let's get into it. You want to go ahead and announce our main topic?
Well, wait a minute. Let's do Patreon shout outs.
Oh, okay.
I
First of
wanna
all,
do
that's a
Patreon
good
shout-outs in the
one.
middle, yeah.
Okay,
So-
so go ahead.
Wait, yeah, let me do like I have something. I'm gonna do something for the first patron, right? The very first one to bust out, and I want to make sure that Hey, do you want to just like thank patrons in general?
Okay,
just,
yeah.
for just a
Okay, so
moment?
first of all, thank you patrons for becoming scoundrels. And as Omnis says, something about scum of hive and villainy. I'm not good at memorizing
Solid.
stuff. So, thank you guys for becoming patrons and our scoundrels, and you guys are all wonderful supporters of the show. I honestly will say this has by far been my best patron experience ever, and it's thanks to you guys. Our patron chat is just as busy, if not more, than our public chat. And also, most of our public chat is the patrons talking as well, which I find really cool because you guys aren't just using this cool little secret clubhouse to talk. You're talking throughout the whole entire servers. And I really appreciate that. And I think it's awesome that you guys are supporting us and supporting this community. And keep it up. And as well, if you would like to become a patron, as always, the link will be in the description. Let us know or just sign up and we'll thank you for being a scoundrel. And you can hang out in the Cool Kids Club. Yeah,
you're the producers.
you
your
are
party.
the producers.
Yeah, it's definitely been a smooth transition, I think, and we've gotten a lot of good feedback about, like we kept it, kind of relatively simple, one tier, nothing too stressful, nothing too pricey, something that just just kind of works for people who want to support. And that's something like as a podcaster, like if you're listening to this and you're kind of going like, hey, why do a Patreon? Why is it like you're not going to make that much money off of it? It's just, there's always people that are reaching out. They're like, hey, what can I do to help you guys? How can I show support? Like whether it's buying swag or something, that just people want to do what they can. And that's really cool. And that relieves stress, right? Like Dizzard, just at the bare minimum, paying for Riverside, which is what allows us to record video and stream video so easily. That's roughly $22 a month?
Yeah.
Right? And so just like basically the first 5 patrons basically just covers that. So that's no longer a stress to Dizzard. That's just covered. Man, I've been so used to interacting with everyone at work, and now I'm trying to use my phone, and I had something that was more accessible. Why don't you start going through? All right.
Okay.
Wait a sec. So, a shout out to our very first patron. So, Wild Ominous is here to say Twisted Isles. He shot first when it comes to the patrons. So, congratulations, Twisted Isles. You shot first. You are the chosen one of the patrons. The number one, patient zero scoundrel. This is Wild Ominous. Wild Ominous out. He asked me to do it in the Wild Ominous thing. So,
All right. As far as other people who have become patrons, we have Amon, Winter, Accuser01, Barguest, Bojo, Darth Nader, Spencer, Twisted Isles, Ulysses, and Zeke. Again, thank you everybody for becoming a patron. We greatly appreciate it. And you guys are all wonderful scoundrels in our hearts.
yeah, and all of them have been just super interactive in the
Yeah.
Discord in general and like giving feedback. And so it's like, yeah, they're throwing a few bucks our way, but they're also like probably the most interactive, wonderful people. Well, we've got other wonderful people too, but they've been like just super interactive kind of across the board and sharing stories and even getting into some heated discussions at times. Like that's not necessarily in agreement with us or me. But yeah, I'm glad we got to do the shout outs. So
Keep up the good work. Please.
All right.
Is that
thank
to
you.
disagreeing with me? You're keeping the good work, which is
The
disagreeing.
Lord's
Okay,
work, yes.
just making sure that I understood what you were throwing down.
And then, just in case anybody is curious what you get for being a patron, you get the exclusive. Do we say the name of the channel, or do we not talk about Fight Club?
I think if you want to know what's special about the channels, you come find out. You know?
So we have super secret channels. We have bonus episodes, which will be recorded after our regular episodes.
Which means slightly more intoxicated.
Yes, which is more
It all
loose
catches up to
cannon.
you at some point, right?
And then the shout outs. And yeah, so that is that. So let's go ahead and get into our main topic. Omnis, you said you wanted to go ahead and dive into this.
So, this was something that actually came up. Like, Dizzard and I were already kind of diving into this behind the scenes, and then it also came up in discussion in, I believe, the patron chat, and we were talking about the complications of when you're playing a team that burns through force. And like I talked about it a little bit when I was playing Republic, and my first game with Obi Annie, I had no force for like my last 3 activations. Like, I think it was Cody 501st and 212 got no force. Like, I was out, but I was winning, so it was fine. But I had to like figure out, what am I doing with these characters with no force to help them. Dizzard was talking about a game where he was playing, and he had kind of run out of force at a certain point, and so he didn't have force for like the last 2 Mandos or something that were activating.
Oh no, it was worse than that. Like,
Whoops.
yeah, no,
but that's
yeah,
yeah, and I'm sure Sam has experienced it too, and like we're kind of like starting to go like, okay, well, maybe we should stop and like think about, okay, here's the strike team that I'm putting down on the table, and here is how I can spend force for them, and go, does that exceed the amount of force that I have? Okay, where do I dial it back? Where are my options? And I think like Django is a great example of a character who can like spend a lot of force if you're running force light for one reason or another, or you've gotten refreshes, but he can also go force 0, right? He could focus to jump and then walk, or walk, focus to jump, right? And spend 0 force. And so thinking about things like that and how that works into the structure. Does anyone want to like throw out a team to kind of break down like what you think your first order deck run through force spending would be like?
let's go Sam, because we know what my answer is going to be.
Annie and Obi. Yeah.
Yeah. So where do you cut
That's a hard
force
one.
there? Yeah. Like,
So like you want to hold on to basically 3 force for Anakin, like the
Right.
entire game, right? Because and honestly, like Anakin will spend all your force if you'll give it to him. Because if you're
Yes.
going to give him like his activation in the Shatter Point,
well, and there's
like, boom,
Shatterpoint. You
there's
could do
6
6.
force. You got 1 other force.
Like, Obi jumps, Anakin spends 6. None of the rest of your team gets force.
Right. Well, you got 1 because you got 1. You got 7 force with that team. But
Right. But 6 for Annie, 1 for Obi to jump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's the 7. And
Yeah,
that's
that's it.
assuming no reserving.
So that's a lot of force on a team.
Yeah.
And I think that might be one of the most uncomfortable spots about that Anakin and Obi setup, is that you've got you also have variable force costs in Obi-Wan. So if he winds up going early, there are times where you really want to turn on his so uncivilized, and that costs a force every time. It's
Yep.
not like your regular deflect. It's not like it's like, oh, he has deflect, and then if you don't know, if you're like, oh, I want to get bonus damage, you pay a force and you get bonus damage. Like, no, you have to pay force to do that every single time. So you really don't want him hung out to dry, because he'll burn through your force, and then you don't have enough force to double tap with Anakin, and that's not fun either. I've been running Ahsoka in that mix, right? And she's fun, but she's got a double force expenditure as well, because she's
Yep.
got she can double jump, and that's rough stuff. Like, how do you budget for that? You have no refreshes, and you have multiple like variables in there, and you really want at least 3 force for one character's activation. That's rough. That's a lot to manage.
So, where do you find that you just cut it? Do you just like go, hey, my clones got to do less? Like, do they have to just get by? Do you like Rex has got to move a clone? You know, where in that do you find you cut?
I try not to spend force for the most part, and then whoever winds up getting like the last activation or so, like as you get down there, right, you know what's left, and so it's like, okay, I've got 3. How much force do I have left to spend in my activation deck, right? So if Anakin's not going to have a particularly meaningful activation, then you don't really need to save 3 force for him, or 6 for that matter. And sometimes like the clone ball, you want to be able to keep together. So I mean, usually I wind up spending a force or 2 pretty early to get the clones in the position that I want them in, assuming that I'm drawing them early enough, and then at that point, I'm just gonna stop spending force, by and large.
Well, it's also a thing you got to think about with reserving, right? You're like, can I? Because I had a point in one game where I was like, do I reserve right now? And then I was like, no, reserve fucks up any of my remaining activations, because I was I think I was at 1 force, and I'm like, no, I need 1 force for whoever activates. Like, if I reserve and get my optimal activation, but they don't have force to jump, it doesn't help me at all. So I just have to not reserve. And then also thinking about, how does reserving impact like how you play out the game, right? Like, does it shift things? Like, does it make somebody else have to play more casually? Dizzard, you got to play Maul, right, which helps a little bit, but he doesn't solve it completely.
No.
So pick a Maul team and kind of
Okay,
talk
so
about like where you would expend what's the characters and who spends force and how much.
I think talking about the practice game trying to out Mother is actually a really good example of Maul doesn't fix everything. Because that's the game that you were referencing, where I was running Maul, Django, Night Sisters, and then Mother, Bow, Supers. And I was out of force before Bow and Supers. And I was like, I'm in trouble. Because I have 6 force. Maul didn't use any, but Django and Mother and Night Sisters, they Django used what, 1, 2. Mother used 2 to do a pull, and Night Sister used 1 to do the jump. So I had this 1 force for Bow and the supers, which is not very good. And it felt super bad. And like the whole
Mandos get really not very great when they don't have force.
Oh, and then I had reserve too because I drew Mother super early, and then I drew her again. So reserving messed everything up. And like a common thought is like Maul just fixes your force issues. You run Maul, you're not going to have force issues. Well, if you're playing Django, who wants at least 1 plus, Mother, who wants 2 plus, it very much comes into you're going to run out of force pretty quickly, even if Maul's not using any of it. And when typically I'm used to, I can run Maul, Ahsoka, all Mandos. Maul doesn't use any, and that gives 1 force for each of the Mando activations, and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 for Ahsoka to use, potentially 2, and 1 to reserve if I want to reserve. And it feels really good. Like, it feels like a really force efficient team. But it's not copy paste everywhere. And I think this is like something that we want to talk about is calculating your potential force expenditure cycle 1. How much force can I expect to spend in my first cycle? And if it exceeds my force I'm bringing, I might be in trouble. Unless we come into a situation that Amos wants to talk about with replenishing.
Right, and so this is where you could also think about like what characters bring force back to your team, right? And like you've got some characters like Grievous and Grand Inquisitor who do it in this kind of rare situations, and like Asajj can do it, but it's really not something that you can depend on. But then you've got characters like Dooku, who's just like, you tank any of my dudes, I get some force back, right? Like if you're just kind of playing the game, I'm going to get some force back at some point. And this is where like Dooku, I'm finding like, even though I think he's a little bland as a character and he's like not nearly as cool of a general as Obi is, but what he does for the entire team, because he can do he dashes for free. So that means he has a very reasonable ability to get to a midline with spending 0 force himself. And he helps Magna Guard play better because one, he's a separatist leader. Magnus get moves off of separatist leaders, or separatist primaries, and then Magnus don't spend force either. And so you naturally get the situation where he doesn't need to spend any force. You can spend it defensively if you want, if you have extra. So you can kind of like play into that situation. But you now suddenly you have two characters who don't need to spend anything. And he runs Django, who's a character who can spend nothing or spend a lot if you have the extra. Like if your opponent's dazing or wounding characters, Django can do a lot. And so that box like fixes probably like force expenditure more than anything else in the game, and can almost just go, oh, well, this just sets up your other team. Like if you love playing Anakin and you want to murder and Shatterpoint with Anakin all the time, you might actually run him with Dooku. Like, sure, there's not any special synergy like that Anakin does for them, but the fact that you can always Shatterpoint Anakin and always go all out with him if you want is a pretty big deal. And so this is where there's the possibility like Dooku and Maul might be somewhat evergreen characters because of this force economy. What do you guys think about that?
I'm actually really curious because we started off earlier in the show saying Grand Inquisitors, meh. You and I both kind of said this, but when you really look at Grand Inquisitor and Dooku, they're kind of doing the same thing. Minus Dooku's a little more efficient with it, and Dooku's more reliable with it. But we said, what is Dooku doing? He gets a free dash and he gets to dash somebody up who he's using. Grand Inquisitor gets a dash and to dash somebody up that he's using. Inquisitor, that is. He has an chance to get force back. I think Grand Inquisitor is good into a force user heavy team because then you're going to get a lot of force back. And if you're using all Inquisitors, he gets to the heals. I think Dooku and Grand Inquisitor might actually be very similar. It's just Dooku is more free reign when it comes to it, and Grand Inquisitor is more singularity, like focused.
You know, I was ready to argue with you, and I'm starting to feel it. Like maybe he's not your first choice, but maybe if you feel like your premier list needs two things that fix force. The problem with Grand Inquisitor is that he probably does not bring a support that's force light. He's going to bring Fifth Brother or something.
He's bringing Fifth Brother, let's be real. But I think the interesting thing about Grand Inquisitor, though, and I've had this conversation with Ulysses, and he's written articles for us about his Grand Inquisitor stuff, and Spencer, who's been running Grand Inquisitor, and my thoughts with Grand Inquisitor. And Grand Inquisitor doesn't pair with things very well. If you're playing Grand Inquisitor, you're probably playing Vader. And if you're not playing Vader, you might be playing Maul. It just really, I think the best way to put it is like he's
pairs well with Vader.
I think he pairs very well with Vader. But I think Dooku just has more flexibility with where he can fit and provide you the same options. I think Grand Inquisitor is okay, and I think maybe that's why I have the feelings of okay, where I feel like I'm locked into where I can play Grand Inquisitor and feel good about it.
Fair.
I think there's a bit of a third way here, which is that if you have more situational abilities in your team, then it's less about the force budget and more about, what do I need now? What do I need to make sure that I have? And like there are feels pads when you're playing like Anakin, you're like, oh, I got to dip down from 3 into 2 for some reason or another. Like, oh, I just had to do this. And now I've got 2 force, so I don't have the repositioning that I might want when I do finally draw Anakin. But I also think that if you're not playing with Anakin, if you're playing more of like a Obi and Luminara or Obi-Wan and Ahsoka, you only have 6 force to spend over your entire like team. You've got probably at least 1 or 2 force abilities around. You have more force because of the more force than you can spend printed on your cards because of the way that the multiple abilities read. But I think that they're not always applicable, right? So Obi-Wan's got a force to jump. Sure. He's got his force to still uncivilized. But if he's not exposed, you don't have to worry about that so much. And then you've got Barriss. It's like 2 force, or not Barriss, but Luminara. That's 2 force for a full heal. Or Barriss, that's 2 force for a push. Asajj, 2 force for a push, right? These characters you're not necessarily going to use that every time. Could you? Absolutely. And if you're in Dooku's team, of course you would, because you're just like, I got force coming out of the woodwork. Why wouldn't I do this?
Yeah.
But when you don't, your other option is to be like, well, do I really need to do this? What force ability do I need? Have I drawn it yet? Is it still in my deck? And if it's still in your deck and you think you still need it, then it's like, okay, find something else to do with what you're drawing until you get to that. And don't spend the force unless you have to. And that's a different way to play the game. And I'm not saying that it's like, I just don't think it's particularly disadvantaged. I think there's going to be more times with a force refresher that doesn't spend force, like a well-built Dooku team that's like Dooku and droids, Dooku and Asajj and all the droids. And then you're just not spending force for basically anything. And you're getting all of this action economy. And then you get to the end of your turn and you've got like 4 force left. But it doesn't matter because it's more like separatists just aren't on a force clock. Yeah. They just have like force. And it's like, well, do I have force to do this? Yes or no?
Well, I ran a Dooku Maul list for a while, and that is very much like I have too much force. I think that's kind of the inverse of what we're talking about. Is you also need to be mindful of, am I too rich in force? Is my economy reversed where I'm not making, if I'm not able to maximally be efficient? I'm trying to think of the best way to say this, but like Maul and Dooku is not like you're wasting force in the fact that you're ending your cycle with 4+ force, and that doesn't feel good. You feel like you're missing. You feel like you're not doing enough.
It's a topic for another day, but like that's like the synergy conversation. Like how much synergy is too much synergy, right? So we talked a little bit about keywords to start the show, but it's like that's still not really digging into synergy. And it's like, well, if your entire team is just like force refresh everywhere, everybody's just giving you a force refresh for sneezing, then yeah, you have too much force. But like, I don't know, NASA's triple redundant for a reason, right? Because like when stuff goes wrong on the space shuttle, you need like 3 other answers for the thing that's breaking. And so if for whatever reason, you're running all these force refresh people, but then like you're not getting the correct wounds to trigger those refreshes. You're getting, the wound on somebody else. You're playing against a KG opponent who's not just feeding you their force users or their secondary units or their primary units. And, you've got too much force. But as soon as you hit those benchmarks, right, you've got so many different answers that you're probably still going to not run out of force. And so you might wind up with too much force in some cases. I don't know. I don't have any experience with that play style because of how I'm approaching this game. I just want to play what I want to play. And I love those mechanics. Like everything about the Sith mechanics, I just love in games. I'm like, dang it, but I'm not that way anymore. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to play this game for the mechanics that I like. I'm going to play it for the characters that I want to play. So it's a journey. And I think that, right now, I think pretty much every approach is pretty close to comparable. It's more like, how do you want to play the game? Where are you comfortable? Who do you like playing? But count your force for sure.
Yeah, like at least if you're going to play that team, right? If you're going to play like Annie Obi, you got to know in advance, like, where are you making sacrifices? Or is the plan to just always, I'm going to spend force on like my first 4 guys that come up, and the second 2 have to suck it?
Yeah, I think some of that's skill building in games too, right? So like if you learn how to pilot a list that has like a very, very tight force economy, and then you get to play something where that like opens up a little bit, you're gonna like that's a different experience with the game.
Well, it's like
you learn how to manage it well.
It's like 501st. Am I gonna defensive maneuvers when they're just gonna go stand on my point anyways, and with only not needing that dash?
Yeah. No.
They're gonna die anyways.
Look for spots where, like, I mean, part of this you may examine by a table, right? Like, if they can just walk, go up a ladder, and then hunker and be on the point, that saves you a force, right? And so you might look for those sort of things. It's not just team composition. Some of it's board response, where you go, where can I make sacrifices to clean up my force usage? And because a lot of time, like in that first turn, you're like, do I want the extra hunker on the 501st? Like, does that matter? But then if you're playing a super force heavy team, if you're playing Vader and the
second hunker can be really good for what that's worth.
Yeah, if you're playing Obi as the second unit, then like
And obviously now you're moving 2, you're dashing both sides of that support unit. You're potentially healing important statuses. If you're probably not up for them because they're the 501st, so who cares? But you can probably hit other more important units.
Okay, so my question for you guys is, let's say we're second, maybe even third cycle now, and you are fair. But let's just say like I'm like characters are wounded now. Where do I make the decision of I'm paying 2 force for this, or I'm just not going to do this? I think a great example for me is
Don't get wounded.
Don't get wounded. Yes.
Play clones. That's impossible.
I think Mother and the clones are
Don't
probably
spend
one of the
force
best like examples with this, is because they want to do the coordinated fire. Mother wants to do the drain life, but like once she gets wounded, like am I really gonna pay 1 force for a 1 recover? Probably not. Probably not.
Yeah. Well, there's also the
Situational.
factor of, I mean, maybe in the right situation where that recover is like removing pin,
Yeah.
you know, like I could still see situations where you do that.
Mhm.
But there's also, you've got to think about whether you're winning or losing the current struggle as well, right? Like, you definitely don't blow through your force if you're already losing struggle 1. Like, if you're looking at the board and going, I need to be thinking about struggle 2. You don't want to be going into struggle 2 and then have your last 3 characters not have any force to use. And then like even if you were advantaged from a positional aspect, you might still be fucked. So
I would
That's-
rather activate a unit and not spend a force with agency than not be able to with no agency.
yeah. What do you guys
Or
think about like
or
or
be able to have I'm very much I've been screwed over by it too many times. I will always stay on at least 1 force for I need to reserve, because there, especially if I'm like late game, I've lost games just because I drew the wrong person and I didn't have a force to reserve them.
that is something like even when you're on your very last activation, like I had an activation one game where I had 4 force and it was my last activation and it was Asajj, but she was wounded. And so I'm very much like, how much force am I willing to spend right now? The eventual decision was I decided to force push for 3 and stay with 1 because there was a few different positions where I wanted the 1 force defensively, and so I wanted to keep that one. So I was like, but I thought of a lot of different plays with her about what she could do with her activation because she's Asajj. She can be anywhere, do just about anything under the right circumstance. But you do have to think about that, right? Like, okay, this is my last activation, but you don't refresh right away after your last activation. You refresh when you do the shuffle. So you could have that 1 turn of no force left where you can't activate any defensive abilities. And so that's something to keep in mind as well. Do you guys have any tips in that regard? Do you like always want to hold on to the force? What do you think?
I think you might be mistaken on something here.
What?
I just want to make sure I'm understanding you correctly. So
Yes,
So
I'm saying
Okay, go ahead.
you do not refresh your force until you shuffle the order deck.
Yes.
That does not happen when you activate the last character. That happens at the start of your next turn is when you would shuffle because you need to draw the next character.
No, the shuffle happens when there are no cards in the deck. So as soon as you
Really?
end that activation, so once you end that character's
Are
activation,
you reading that out of the book?
11A.
Yeah, it's you shuffle at the end
Oh.
of the activation.
Okay, then. I stand 100% corrected. I had so many people say that it was the next activation.
No,
okay,
I thought it
great.
was too.
Ignore that.
Wow.
Totally fucking ignore that.
this, everybody. Come on.
Yeah, don't listen to Ominous.
Don't
it's
take
okay.
advantage of him. I said
Oh.
don't take advantage of
Oh, okay,
Okay,
yeah.
so-
Listen to him. Don't take advantage of him. Take advantage of him. It's fine.
Yeah. Okay, good to know. Learning
Yeah.
something again. I was all like making very delicate choices because I thought you do not refresh
Yeah.
until you would draw the next card.
Because it's great
It's a
because
work
at
group
that
today.
point it's very much like I go with somebody and I'm like, okay, I'm fine. I can spend all the force I need and now I can still activate my defensive stuff once I'm done if I need to. That's where I'm always like, I'm just gonna blow my load as like with this character if I can.
I gotta not trust people.
I love the awkward silence at the end of that. Okay. All right.
Works. I am happy to learn. Like, this is part of like the beginning of a game, right? We're only like slightly over a month since its release.
No, I wanna join the cool kids club. I didn't read the rule book either, so I learned today that you can't climb when you're engaged.
I've read the rulebook like 10 times.
You can only dash.
You can only dash.
You can only
You
or
can't
jump.
climb.
You can jump.
It's not so much that you can only dash. It's that the rulebook literally says, if you're engaged, then you cannot climb. And I was like, wait, what?
So if you're engaged, it makes any advance a dash. You cannot climb, but you can jump. So if I spend like a force to do a force speed, that now becomes a dash. I could do that, but it's now a dash. If I want to jump, I can absolutely jump. You cannot scale, no.
Because it just turns that action into a climb, and you can't climb.
Winter in chat is correct. Reposition is the only way you can make an advance while you're like engaged.
Yeah, that is its reposition is very specifically ignores the engagement stuff.
Yeah.
You still get shot by Supermandos though.
Yeah, you still get 2 damage, and it's innate, so you get hit by both of them, or is it reactive? I'm probably reactive. I play this game too.
Good, I can be not the only one getting rules wrong.
I'm tired. Okay.
Support group, guys.
Anyways,
We are a support group.
I think
We're not podcasters. We're therapists.
We're therapists. Something that I wanted to.
We're SharePoint therapists.
Something that I wanted to hit on.
Therapist omnis. Is there a sentence more scary than therapist omnis?
No.
All right, why don't you sit down and tell me how your games have gone?
Actually, I think me.
Have you tried being better?
Therapist Dizzard sounds
You should
scarier.
roll better, Dizzard. That would work well for you.
You're right. I should roll better. So something that I wanted to hit. I do sometimes, unless I'm playing against like Sooner or somebody who like I just notorious like every game. I just roll nothing but crits and expertise. I had 7 expertise. I do too. Yeah. But something that I think is very important is when you're testing your list to see what you actually want to be playing is stress test the limits of your force. Understand where you can and can't cut quarters. This is what I was doing with that Mother and Maul list is I was like, I'm going to spend as much force as I can and every opportunity I can to see how fast I can run out of force. And it was real fast.
Whoopsie.
But I think it's something worth doing and looking at your list is like actually like taking what your thoughts are and seeing them on the table instead of just thinking, yeah, 6. I got 6 force. And then you get on the table and you're like, oh, I only have 2.
Nailed it.
Yeah, I mean, you could have 7 force teams that just burn through force like crazy.
Yeah.
You could
Or
have
need to hold on to 6 of it.
Yeah. You're like, all right, I can spend 1 somewhere. The rest is for Anakin. I know at least one person in the Discord who understands that completely. It would actually be really interesting. I would love to hear your thoughts in the Discord about like, hey, if you are like hardcore into the Anakin plan and like Anakin's getting 6 of the 7 force, who gets the 1? I'm really curious. Like,
that's for reserving. That's for reserving.
That's for reserving to activate Anakin at the right time.
For Anakin.
Nobody else gets force.
It's to reserve Anakin because you drew him first and you really wanted Rex.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh.
Or it's for Obi-Wan because those extra dice are really nice.
Yeah.
They're very nice.
Maybe my pitch is you should play Dooku with Annie, and they should be the Sith apprentice combination.
Fair. Or just play Maul everywhere.
We've already established that Maul does not solve all the problems himself.
I mean, yes, I agree with that, but is he still fun? I'm going to hurt myself
Yeah,
to
he
be
does
better.
help a lot.
He's hurt.
I think so.
B1s and like Kraken. Then is that the play? B1s, Kraken, Anakin, Magmas,
That could work.
Django, and Dooku.
I don't hate it.
So one of my early realizations, right? You remember back when we were doing proxy games before the game came out, I was negative on Maul because I didn't feel like he did anything, but I was super high on Anakin. And the thing was, is I was playing games against Anakin and Maul together, and it didn't occur to me in the moment, right, that like Maul
Sounds
doesn't have
terrible.
to do that much when he's facilitating Anakin always having the Force to always jump
So
and
in
murder.
reality,
right? When
Maul's
you're
doing
playing-
everything in that game because he's enabling Anakin
Right.
to do everything.
like
Hey,
in
man, here's some
retrospect, it
drugs.
makes perfect sense. Like maybe you do play Anakin and Maul together, where like Maul just facilitates Anakin always being able to murder whatever he wants. Like
You could even
you know.
expose him for Anakin and get him ready to line up for the kill.
Line him up.
Yep.
He doesn't need it, but you know.
So
Except for
you're
when he
saying that
does.
you should play Anakin and Maul?
No.
You don't want to play better Vader?
That is a hot take if I ever heard one. That one
Well, I've
gets
said
a
it so many
rancor.
times. Anakin is better than Vader.
No.
Yeah.
Anakin is a selfish little prick. Vader is helping your whole entire team.
For the cost of 0 force.
For the
Vader
cost
gives
of
you
0.
access to an entirely different resource to spend on your
Yeah.
team, all across the board. And
Every turn.
he's-
I will
he's
stand
very
by this.
with his hate.
6 months from now, when
And
like,
Anakin is forgotten, and no one plays him.
Anakin will almost never be forgotten. He will be the murder slot machine player's favorite murder slot machine.
Anakin's
murderer.
biggest problem is going to be that he shares space with Darth Vader. Period.
Yeah, that
It's
is
not
his
just
biggest
this Vader,
problem.
It's the
Well,
next one too.
Yes, that is always going to be a problem for Anakin.
Mhm.
That he's going to compete with Vader in a premier list. Like that is going to be his biggest downside. But
Yeah.
I think when you truly want to play murder, which we've from the last community that we've all been a part of, we know that murder is very, very.
It's on the
popular.
menu. Murder.
Nobody
It's on the
does it better
menu.
than Anakin.
But Vader spreads
People
the
want
love.
to activate and push someone's shit in.
Fair.
And
I mean,
that's
you're not wrong, but Vader wants to spread the
Paltry price of
love.
all your force.
Vader spends no
Yes,
force.
he
to
does
spread
take
the
all
love.
of your force. But I will absolutely predict that we are going to see Anakin plus either Maul or Dooku that solves some of the force issues. Probably includes Jango either way. But maybe you play Maul with just like a really force light secondary and support unit as well.
That's what I like
But
with Ahsoka.
if you-
Is like Ahsoka doesn't really use a whole lot.
What? Are we playing the same Ahsoka?
Primary Ahsoka.
Yes. She's not force light.
She uses one
Maybe
force.
if you forget to ever use her cool powers.
No, her like she only spends one force, and then 2 when she gets hit. Just don't put her in a spot to get hit.
I feel like we're not playing the same game.
I feel like we play Ahsoka very differently.
I feel like you just don't
Why
actually
you have
play
2 force to
Ahsoka.
play Ahsoka? Like she's only getting attacked once during like each like
Yeah.
cycle through everything.
So
That's the whole point of this conversation is where do you spend your force? And I love when I'm like, I've had multiple games now where my opponent plays Ahsoka and I'm like, oh shit, my best activation right now is to go try to kill Ahsoka. And then I look, I'm like, oh, you have 1 force.
perfect.
Problem solved.
So my actually,
Wow, Dominus is going
This
after
is-
Ahsoka now.
This is
Murder
actually-
down it
I'm
is.
really curious on your guys' thoughts on this one. I have found myself less and less and less going after primaries and more so going after the secondaries and supports unless I can easily expose that primary.
Unless you're playing Magna Guards, and then you will happily just push a
Yeah.
primary off of
Yeah,
it.
facts.
Yeah.
But I just like I'm really trying to determine is because primaries arguably are the ones that spend the most force. Arguably, they kind of
Yeah.
they are. Is it better to impart the tax of wounding them and making them spend more for their force abilities, or do you just go after opportune targets? Because I found myself just ignoring primaries for the most part. I'll control them, but I'm not really going into them.
Sam, do you want to take this first? Or do you want me to?
I am ever the opportunist. So if I have to go after a primary, well, okay, shucks, I have to go after a primary. But for the most part, no. I want to go for the things that are going to give me points, and I'm almost always going for the push more than the damage.
I agree
Just
with
get off the
Sam.
point.
I think I'm trying to push you off a point. in theory, like if you know the game is going to go 3 rounds, right? And maybe you're playing from the position of knowing that you're losing struggle 1, and so your only hope of winning this game is to win struggle 2 and struggle 3, then there might be a bigger advantage to wounding an Anakin or an Asajj or a Mother, something like that early on, to put more force strain on your opponent that you hope to capitalize on over the course of a longer game. But in general, I think I'm just an opportunist, that I'm just going like, what's the best way for me to score and potentially like hold the score. And I do think figuring out how to hold the score is important, because this was something my last opponent was talking about, how they activated and they were like 1 success away from getting what they needed, and I was able to hold the point, and they felt like, man, just like me failing that 1 activation turned around the game. Like, I thought I was winning struggle 2, and then all of a sudden you were winning struggle 2. And I think there was a lot more involved in that, but it's, when you can hold a point through an opponent activation, especially in struggle 2, and especially when it's like a 2 point, like when you deny your opponent 2 points and you just hold the point, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Well,
can I get an amen? He
All
is
right.
not on the podcast right now, but I still need an amen.
Is there anything else
Can I
you guys
get an
want to
amen?
cover with force expenditure, or are you going to wrap it up?
I want to touch a little bit more on stress testing, because I think there's a little bit. It's not just like spending your force. I think it's also like, like put Obi-Wan out there if you're playing Obi-Wan, and like use the force on him. So I agree with you on that point. And one thing I wanted to kind of throw into the mix is something that I've heard from people who talk about mixed martial arts, which is like, I forget the exact terminology. I hope that someone can correct me on this, because it's a really cool turn of phrase. But basically, it's like, let somebody take you to the ground. If your ground game is shit, then let someone take you to the ground and work on it. And like if you're a puncher and a kicker, and your ground game isn't super strong, right? Like, practice for when things go wrong. Yeah. And so sometimes that's going to be running out of force. So yeah, like get out there, spend that force down, see what happens, see like what your list does without spending force. Because like you can do that and just be like, I'm just not spending force. But like it's different when you're out, right? It's that whole agency.
You don't have options.
Right. So you can choose not to spend force, but that does not feel the same as just not having it to spend. So yeah, spend a couple games, blow through everything, and see where it goes for you. Let somebody take it to the ground and work on your ground game.
I agree with that. I think in general, just like see what it's like, play. But I also think like if you're struggling with force and you felt like it's been a constant issue, just try playing try playing some of the stuff. Like, you'd be surprised how much work Django does with no force. Like, his pull costs 1.
Focus is a hell
And
of a
he
drug.
can potentially get it for free. And
His
like,
action economy is sick.
I'm like, oh, you pushed him off the point. He will focus, jump onto the point, and then still shoot you.
Yeah.
Like, and just like maybe work some of that stuff in somewhere and try to solve some of those problems. And this is part of why I am out of the like full synergy. You have to only play all separatists, or only play all Republic, or only play all Mandos, where I'm kind of in like, how about I just build a cool team that does a lot of cool shit?
And that's the fun
So
part.
I'm kind of like the opposite of Sam right now. Sam's like, I'm just going to play my favorite characters. And I'm going to play the stuff that has the shit on the cards that I like.
I
want
played
to
a proxy
play
game with
Broken
Vader and
Scroll.
Obi, and it was a hell of a drug. So
Yeah.
I don't.
That does.
Okay, here's a
You
question.
get a little dark side, but you also get to play Obi. How perfect is that for you, right? Like,
man.
you're like, I
question.
get to play Thanos at the same time as the heroes?
Do you think your opinion has changed on it is not necessary to buy the dual pack, or is Vader going to be a necessity?
Vader is not a necessity unless you love Vader.
I'll second that. I still stand by that.
I don't think that this is like, if you don't run Vader, you're gonna lose to all your friends.
Yeah,
So,
Vader still
no.
loses. I just think it's
beat your
super.
friends, you should totally pick that thing up though.
Hey, I wanna hit Winter Knight's
Yeah, go
comment
ahead.
real quick. Right? So I'm gonna read the comment real quick. Not sure if you've covered this or not, but do you feel force is more important in the first struggle because you need to get people on points via extra movement than it is in later struggles because units are already in the middle and can get to other points without needing extra movement? While I think it is the most important in struggle 1, a lot of the time in struggle 2, you may still need to move. Like, you may not be on an active point. I feel like movement ends up being very important throughout the entire game. But if you've won struggle 1, or if you blow a bunch of force really early on in struggle 1, you may be willing to sacrifice your last few activations in the first part of struggle 2. You're like, I don't care. You're going to win struggle 2. I'm already thinking about struggle 3. I don't care that my last 3 activations don't have force. Enjoy winning struggle 2. I'm glad you get one struggle and move on. So there's I mean, I feel like it's a little bit of both, where you got to realize that you are going to have to move in other struggles, and sometimes move more. Sometimes you're like, I have to fucking cross the entire board for the point that matters.
Yeah,
And
the activations being decoupled from the turns is a really interesting part of Shatterpoint. Like this is the first game I've played where it wasn't like the activations, like you just went through everyone and like that was like the turn or the round, right? It's like this is not like that. You have these different struggles that are, you know, you've got 2 to 3 of them. And it's completely different from the cycle of the order deck. That's neat. And it doesn't mean you can blow through your stuff or you can try to save it. So like if you decide that you're losing struggle 1, then you can save that for. It's just the opposite of what Anna said. You can save that for struggle 2 and, you know, just
hammer down.
Dizzard, are we going to do an addressing the council from one of the patrons? Do you already have that prepared?
I completely forgot about it, to be honest. Did we get one?
I'm sure there's one in there. Do we have to hold off and we just do one?
I don't think we got one from the patrons yet, to be honest.
I'm pretty sure there was. Check your notes.
I'm checking my notes.
If not, well. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Sam. I think it's an important thing to keep in mind and an important thing to balance. But do you? I mean, we're kind of like pushing into the addressing the council section now. Do we have any more thoughts on the force economy? If anyone in the chat has questions or comments, I'm happy to get into them at this point. This is something that it didn't fully occur to me until we were legitimately talking about it, that I probably need to count. And it really also occurred to me why I'm liking Dooku and the Magna Guard so much was, and I didn't understand it, because I'm like, I'm not like Dooku's doing anything crazy on the table. Magna Guards are solid, and I know that they need separatist leaders to fully function, but why am I liking Dooku? And it occurs to me like, oh, Dooku not just helps me refresh force, but he spends less force when I don't need him to. And because I swear to God, I cannot use his defensive abilities.
Do you even Dooku, bro?
People just don't fucking roll failures, or they're like,
just
all crits.
I just don't attack Dooku because he's scary to attack.
Dude, that is not my.
That's all I do.
Dude, my Dooku gets so punished. Like, I swear to God, my Dooku takes a shit ton of damage from like a 5 dice attack. I'm like, you got a free attack, and Dooku just took like 6 damage. What happened?
Well, if you're shooting him, yeah,
you shoot him.
I mean,
you
he's
shoot him.
miserable to melee with, though.
We are playing Star Wars.
We are Star Wars.
Shooting happens.
All right. So I couldn't find one in the patron chat. If I missed it, I'm sorry, but we do have an address in the council.
Play the piano on YouTube.
Okay, I propose we do an address, like we do
we
a
have
submission.
One. We have one.
An additional channel in the patrons for them submitting for this, because we told them that we would let them submit for this. And oh shit, never mind. Wait a minute, I got messaged one. That's why I was like, it will get lost. I was like, just message me. But I also remember it wasn't like a. Okay. So I'm going to read this up. This is not a perfect example of our addressing the council, but I'll read it off anyway.
Okay.
how would you describe the vibes of each of the factions, keywords, play styles? They wanted to kind of compare it to MCP, but I don't really want to get into that. So let's just focus on how would you describe the vibes of... Oh, how about I'll simplify this a little bit, because I think this is more than what an addressing the council. This could be a whole topic, really. So why don't we just do, how would you describe the vibe of what you are playing, like your favorite thing to play? So like Sam, like playing like OB Galactic Republic plus X, like what is the vibes of that particular play style?
We're hungry like the wolves. Hungry for all that force, hungry for hunker tokens, hungry for like beating up primaries and secondaries. Like we are hungry like the wolves. That's what it feels like to me. It's really hard not to just spend all your resources all the time because you're trying to aggressively get everywhere you're trying to get to.
I wish I was as concise as you are.
Gizzard. We all wish that.
I'm pretty bad at being concise sometimes, to be fair.
We've all flubbed on that. By the way, addressing has 2 Ds, but
I don't have a degree, so
a degree in spelling.
Are you on the council? But you have not been granted the rank of master? Is that...
wow.
Yes, that is exactly what's going
Wow. All right.
Okay.
To answer the question with, let's just say Maul Ahsoka. I think Maul Ahsoka All Mandos is probably still my favorite team to play right now. Or a Maul Vader, but they're both kind of the same gist. I like to slap things, and I like to slap them efficiently.
There you go.
Yeah. With some mild control. And Maul.
Did our topics channel get deleted again?
No, I didn't do it.
I'm like...
No, it wasn't me.
I could have sworn since it last got deleted, I posted an addressing the council.
You did. Yeah, it's right here. Are you in topics or are you in topics discussion?
Oh. No, there we go.
They're
Yeah, it's
different.
literally at the bottom. Okay.
Yeah.
Guys, you're showing them how the sausages are made. Come on. Rein it in. Rein it in. We all know this stuff innately, and we speak telepathically during the week. Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to give an example of an addressing the council for the both, like, so that we kind of understand the concept of this like closeout topic. My addressing the council is, has your opinion of support units shifted since your first games? And I'll go first because I was like, when I first played, I was really blown away by how strong the support units were, right? Like we were all probably to a certain extent thought that they were going to be supports, right? Like just like,
Grunts.
but they end up being like incredibly impactful because they activate 2 characters.
Yeah.
But then I also over time saw the disadvantage of, you're like, oh, well, I'm scoring 2 different points with my support units. And maybe that's cool for like 1 round. And then suddenly they get wounded and you're not controlling either of them. And your opponent gets a big swing back. So I would say that my opinion of them has dialed down. I think our expectations were very low. And then they're actually kind of a medium like impact, but we were expecting low. And so we had talked about them being high. And now I'm kind of like, I think they're kind of a medium impact where it's not like they're more impactful than the primaries, but they're just more impactful than we originally anticipated. What do you guys think? Dizzard, address the council.
I think that it depends on the secondary support. God damn.
God, you fucking politician that doesn't know how to talk.
No.
yourself.
Okay, so or anything. No, when it comes to supports, I think supports probably have the widest design space. So I think that this opinion might fluctuate depending on what you're currently playing. I think if you're playing all Mandos, you're like, wow, supports are the best thing in the world. You're playing clones, you're like, wow, supports fucking suck. If you're playing separatists, you're kind of in the middle. That's what we got right now, right? Because Mandos are great. I still think Mandos are amazing. I played Night Sisters, and I was like, these are amazing supports. They feel so impactful to the game. I played clones, and I'm like, wow, why am I playing these characters? Because they just kind of die and sit here. And that's just how I feel about them. It might just be the power first, but whatever. So I don't know. I think overall my opinion hasn't changed, other than it's evolved into it depends what support you're playing, and the fact that I think supports have the widest design space. If we look at Fifth Brother, Fifth Brother is completely different when it comes to supports, and I think it's super interesting.
That was the most political non-answer that I could have ever possibly imagined.
You're welcome.
So your opinion
Mine's
hasn't
little-
changed. Great.
No.
Mine's a little steamier.
Sam, what about you?
I had a similar arc as you, Omnis. I went and I started as I thought they were aggressive scoring pieces that were going to be basically useless in like the rest of the game.
Yeah.
So like it was just literally, and I was doing the same thing. I was usually splitting them up, going for 2 different points, trying to just get ahead early. And I thought that was important. And I have since started keeping them together because I still think that they are aggressive scoring pieces, but I think that I will counterpoint you, and I think that they actually are most likely the most impactful activation on your team. That the 2 different support units. So it's not that they're going to, it's not like they're bringing the signature ability, right? That like kind of dictates so much about how your team performs,
Yeah.
right? And is I would argue like more impactful on your game than their activation. But their activation, when you flip that card over, has the potential to be the most impactful activation on your team because it's 2 bodies, it's 2 shots, it's 2 actions, which
And
is
you're a
almost like
correct. You're a Galactic Republic player. You have
Yeah,
like
and the
the
Final First
worst
is terrible.
supports
The worst.
and the best, like some of the craziest primaries.
The 212s
And you're
just
like,
die, and
these
it's
are the most
pretty-
impactful. And I still agree to a certain extent. Like, there's been a lot of times that I have never done this playing Galactic Republic, and maybe it's just because I didn't play them enough. Like, I'm kind of the jack of all trades mercenary right now, playing a little bit of everything. But I have never shatter pointed a support unit playing Galactic Republic.
Being able to pin 2 different units is awesome. That's like the one thing that I think the 501st like actually do like reasonably well is just drop.
Yeah, they've
pin
got a
on
great tree.
2 different
Like,
units.
yeah.
No, they don't.
I
But
think
they
that
do have a first step pin, which
That is
Pretty
a great
consistently
tree.
tagged to
First
Yeah.
damage pin is very good.
I do think yeah, sometimes there's one if you got coordinated fire going on.
We're here for pushes,
Same
and
target.
pins are almost as valuable as pushes when you're switching struggle.
Almost.
So,
Yeah.
almost, yeah.
Anyway, listeners, if you want to like respond to the addressing the council in the Discord, whether it's the Patreon chat, the main chat, like hop into the cantina, how are you feeling about the various support units, and has your opinion shifted as you've gotten in more games? So, do you guys have an addressing the council before we wrap up?
I'm good.
Is
that a
Maul
no?
the best primary in the game currently?
No.
How many times do we have to cover this one?
It could have changed.
Do you? I don't think you
Hey,
think
Winter-
that Maul
Winter's
is
on
the
Disney
best
too,
primary,
so-
and who is?
There we
Do
go.
you think Maul is the best primary in the game? Do you legitimately think he is?
And
the
with that,
best
the
primary?
most Star Wars thing you could do is deny responsibility.
Wait, I thought, the most
Oh.
Star Wars thing you can do in Shatterpoint is to remember your triggers.
Well, you used that one already, though.
If I did, it's still the most Star Wars thing you can do in this game.
Well, that was a rogue support ending if I've ever heard one.
I can't help it.
Welcome.
No, Maul's not the best primary.
Stretch
Said
out
it.
with your feelings.
I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold.
I can bring you spicy hot.
Copy. Okay, there we go. All right. Go ahead, use the bathroom, whatever. Talk to Winter and anybody else in the chat while we go ahead and get stuff set up for the second.
Okay. I mean, I'm good to go. I'll chat with people in the
Okay.
chitty chat,
Um,
unless I closed
think-
it. Oh.
no, you're fair. Yeah, I'm gonna go use the bathroom real quick.
Winter, the
Yeah.
only rule we have, you got to be very conscientious about how much you agree with Dizzard, because it sets a bad precedence.
I won't disagree with that.
Like, it's like it would be better if you agreed with him, but you like reworded it and just said it your own way, so that we could be like, man, Winter, you are so right. If only Dizzard would listen to you more.
Fun fact: I was playing Malekith Red Skull before anybody, and everybody said it was bad. Oh, feels
No one ever told you that was bad, and if they did, they lied to you.
happened.
Dizzard, would you just go to the bathroom already? I could literally see him lifting a cheek at a certain point. Like, brother needs to go. But Winter, you're I'm just making sure because your username is slightly different than your handle in Discord. But I'm assuming you are winter.au. So, this is like early in the morning, this is first thing in the morning for you, starting fresh on your Monday with a little rogue support action. Welcome, man. Well, this is like Sunday night and we're getting a little, unsobered.
Sunday fun day.
Yeah. Man. Winter, do you like what character out of the? Well, I feel bad. I wanted to ask you about the new releases, but I know you kind of got fucked on those a little bit. What of the new releases are you most excited about, though?
Vader.
Man, I gotta say, like, I know we're not on the cast right now. Like, we're not like casting. Oh, sweet. I'm really glad you got this stuff. That like. I feel that pain. But I gotta say, I do not like the current way that they handle spoilers. I do not like having most of the cards for the August releases
I hate it.
before I have the July releases. It drains my hype in a really weird way. We're like, at this point, what cards do we not know out of July? We know like half or more of them, and like we knew half or more of them before we even got the July cards. I don't like that
August
structure. Yeah, but we know like half of the like before we get the July stuff, we already know half or more of the cards that are releasing in August. I think that's too fast for the spoilers.
Yes, and what I dislike, After Dark. What I dislike is the fact that I just give me the whole box or give me one piece at a time. Don't give me two cards in the box and leave me with nothing. Like the fact that Mother and Night Sisters, but no Savage, and then they go to Mace. I'm just like, what? Like, what?
You want well, I think the idea of doing two cards out of a box is fine, but you want to finish the box.
Yeah, instead of going to the next.
Give me my next month preview, like the week or two even after this month's release.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would be fine if we got our first preview, like say if we did not know any of the Mother stuff, right? Yeah. And we got our first release and it was like, here's Mace. Mm-hmm. The week of, as like the week that we're going to get new stuff.
I'm cool with that.
That's fine. That's fine.
I think the reason why they're spacing the stuff out the way they are is to hopefully get in line with that. Because it will eventually. I think it'll start to be like that. If they keep course.
I think they'll eventually switch to kind of what we're talking about. But I think in the beginning, they really want the hype built up really heavily. But I think there's marketing people who do not understand that TTS exists and like how it affects, like people could have moved on. Like people have known Luminara for like a month.
Yep.
Right. Like, people could be already sick of a box before it is actually released.
Do you think from Winter, do you think the previews are linked to pre-orders? I don't think so. I think AMG has actually said, now this is for like MCP, that the marketing and like the preview things are set like months in advance. That's why a lot of them are like on an automatic schedule. Even if they're not working that day, they'll still post because they're already set in advance and they have a certain day that they're revealing this character. I'm sure it's the same thing for Shatterpoint. But I'd rather I would rather August releases being started this week, not 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago now.
I agree. Yeah. Like that's it weirdly affects my, and I felt this in MCP a lot, that by the time like the models were out, I was getting hyped about the stuff that's releasing in a month.
Yeah.
And I was less excited about the models I was picking up, and I was more excited about what's coming out a month from now.
Well, it's like
Because there's already been
just,
so much discussion.
You just pick up Vader. You just pick up Lumi. You just pick up Inquisitors, and then you're already talking about Mace. You're already talking about, especially as a content creator, like you have to talk about that stuff. You can't just ignore it.
I don't think you do.
Can you ignore it?
I agree with Sam. I think in a larger way, like I may have to just fucking ignore.
The Rogue Agents brand on was not talking about what's coming next, but about what we're doing,
what's playable.
How we're doing it.
Yeah.
I agree with Sam here. I'm 100% like I made an exception for Vader, right? We did that episode with him on because that's Vader, right? I also broke my trend when Thanos came out. Like when we saw Thanos's card, I started proxying Thanos because he's fucking Thanos, right? It's the same thing with Vader. Like there are special exceptions where you can drop a preview early, but I'm kind of like. I'm kind of sad that I knew like the Mother and the Night Sisters and stuff like that stuff could be dropping this next week.
I would rather get all of Mace box this week, all of Mother's box the week after, and then all of Cad's box or Padme's box the week after that. And then get the releases. I'm fine with that. Instead of start getting Mother 2 weeks ago, and then now I have a month and a half before I get this character. Savage. I just want Savage.
Yeah, you're just like the thing you wanted most was Savage, and now you don't have it. I think in general, dividing up the box is a little interesting. It keeps people hyped, right? Like, because if you're waiting for the thing, like if you're waiting for Savage, right? Like you're still like actively engaged and excited. I don't mind them breaking up the boxes.
I actively hate Mace Windu even more now because he got in the way.
Right, but you are very specifically in the you are very specifically in the like fuck Galactic Republic, just give me my red lightsabers.
To be fair, I think Mace is pretty cool. Like he's fun. I think he's interesting.
Dude, I am actively kind of surprised that we have a 6 squad point character already.
Yeah. I would have been more in favor of a 6 squad point character being somebody like Cad. I think that would have been more interesting, like having scoundrels. But let's go ahead and you want to go ahead and.
Well, I'm just going to say, like, we've been talking enough. I'm going to take a quick bathroom break before we do the bonus episode, just because on the off chance it runs long. So I will be right back.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm very interested to see how they do CAD as being like a box with no Force users in it. Like, how they're going to handle that. Because so far everything we've had has been there's at least a Force user in the box, if not 2. So I'm very curious to see how a non-Force user box is going to handle point costs.
That's interesting. I'm excited for either a 2-point support unit or a 3.
Pawns is going to be a 3. Pawns will be a 3. And but like
maybe the 2/12 of secondary.
Yeah, but like the thing you're going to run into though is like then it's like cool. Vader now can run 5th brother.
Yeah, I know. Yep.
And that's kind of not something I'm for. Like the fact that I think Vader is like balanced is the fact that like he has to bring the 501st. Even though the 501st really aren't that bad. They're okay.
They're
okay. They're okay.
They're not output like I don't know.
No, they hold a point and they go pew pew. Like they're nothing spectacular. But the thing is like Vader just is like I'm gonna look at somebody and kill them. This is what he does.
You look at someone and kill them.
True. Yeah, like he's very just team output.
Yeah. I'm gonna get it on this bathroom break stuff. I'll be right back.
Okay, I'm gonna sit here and ramble by myself.
Have fun.
They hold a point. Their first combat tree gives them pin, and they hand out strength. Yeah, I think 501st are fine, especially under Vader. Like, he doesn't need more than that. I think they're pretty solid. You're muted. You just muted yourself again. There it is.
Did we lose Sam?
Yeah, he went to go pee now.
Okay.
Everybody's going to
We
pee.
were chatting long enough. All right, are we still on Twitch?
We are, but I'm about to end it once he gets back.
Okay. Bye, Twitchies.
All right,
I
I'll
miss
just go ahead and
you
end it now.
already.
So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and end the Twitch and get going with the bonus episode. Fun fact is, Winter, since you're a patron, you'll be able to see this soon enough. We'll catch you guys.